This podcast is brought to you by Ride IQ. Ride IQ is a first-of-its-kind equestrian coaching platform that will transform your independent schooling rides. Ride IQ members get access to the private mobile app with hundreds of on-demand listen-while-you-ride audio lessons taught by the world's top eventing, hunter-jumper, and dressage coaches. Membership is only $29.99 per month, and every membership automatically includes a free trial when you sign up at ride-iq.com. On today's episode of In Stride, Sinead interviews Will Faudree. Will's an American 5-star event rider. As a young rider, Will won a team gold medal at the North American Young Rider Championships, and from there, he became a working student for Olympic event rider Phillip Dutton. During that time, Will purchased Antigua, and the pair made a quick name for themselves in the eventing community. Will and Antigua were on the U.S. team at the Pan American Games in 2003, and they won a team gold medal. The pair were the traveling reserves for the Athens 2004 Olympic Games, and in 2006, they represented the U.S. at the World Equestrian Games in Aachen, Germany. In 2020 and 2021, Will has finished in the top placings at the 4-star level on 2 horses, Fun and Mama's Magic Way. Today, Sinead and Will are talking about perception versus reality. From the outside, it's easy to perceive Will's story as a series of successes and a source of inspiration. It's certainly the latter, but not just because of the wins. The cycle is hard work, struggle, win, repeat. We hope you enjoy this episode.
All right, everyone, I am here with the one and the only Will Faudree. I am really, really excited to have you here today, Will. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about the next hour and a half. I don't even know what we're going to talk about.
I know. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I was kind of pondering about different topics and different things that are kind of hot topics right now and things that are interesting. And, I've been kind of honestly, I've been kind of sitting around lately because of a certain baby that just happened to show up. And, and I'm watching all you guys. I'm everyone's biggest fan. So I'm, watching you jump around Carolina, and I'm watching everyone at Red Hills. And it's easy to kind of get a little bit like, I'm, excited for my friends and that they're going well, but it's also easy to get a little bit, honestly, a little jealous or a little envious and things like that. And I started thinking about, everything now on social media and everything that's out there. It's so easy to kind of get this false idea of kind of this rock and roll glamorous lifestyle of, eventing and horseback riding and all of this sort of stuff. And then what we're not really seeing is all the behind the scenes work that's going into it. And you were kind of on my list of people to talk to. And I thought this is actually perfect because I know that you'll speak your mind. and
I don't ever have a problem doing that.
No. And B, I've just known you for a really long time, and you're not one to really put out there kind of the hardships and the struggles that have gone on behind the scenes in your all business at the events. But you've had some real roller coasters, and you've been in this sport and at that elite level of this sport, I mean, really since like 2000.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was on the first training list or the first short list for Harath in 2002. And
right.
Then I rode on the Pan Am team in 2003. So yeah, I mean, 20 years.
And you were a baby, like, because we're the same age, so you would have been like 20, right? 21?
Yeah, I was 21 when I made the Pan Am team.
Yeah, so this is going on 20 years, 20, 21, 22 years of doing this sport. And how are you doing? Like, what if you kind of think back about 21 years ago and that you're still rocking and rolling today? And obviously there's a lot of stuff that has changed and a lot of stuff that has stayed the same. I mean, talk to us about how you're doing.
It's a little bit, I mean, it's crazy to think, that I've always been obsessed with this sport and with the horses and with the partnerships that I have with the horses. And I think that's, I mean, I haven't had, somebody asked me in an interview at Carolina, like, oh, what's your most memorable win? And I haven't actually won a ton. There's not I couldn't pick an an event that I've won that is the most memorable. And I said to the girl, it's the relationships, it's the friendships that I've made, it's the bonds that I've had with the horses. I can tell you some really amazing rounds and really amazing competitions. And I actually, like Andromac at Buccolo, when you and I were on that silver medal team, like that was such a awesome cross country round. I remember that. I don't really remember the wins. So, it's interesting I don't feel like I'm old enough to have done this for 20 years.
I know.
And all of a sudden you wake up and you're in your 40s, and yeah, and I've been very, very lucky and very fortunate in my career with the horses that I've had, and with really the support, predominantly backed by Jennifer Mosing, who's also, a friend of yours as well. And she's been a huge, contributor to my time at the top of, or at the elite level of the sport, the advanced level of the sport. But yeah, you gotta keep at it, because it doesn't just, I remember when we were kids, I remember Karen O'Connor saying, it's easy to get to the top, it's hard to stay there. And there's no truer words ever spoken than that.
Yeah, 100%. That's interesting that you say that. That kind of struck a chord when you said that I don't actually remember the wins. I remember the rides, and like that just struck a chord with me for sure, because I know I know behind you there's a bar, but there's also a gym. And I know for me, when I'm kind of on the treadmill running or kind of pushing out that last little bit, I try and get lost in a ride, or in a previous one, or a moment in the future. But often I find myself recounting moments of rides. It's not that, moment where you realize you won or had a strong placing or whatnot. It's a moment reflecting. It's longer, like it's a longer feeling of connection or a relationship or a moment.
It's that sense of accomplishment of, whatever it is. You've had a horse that you've struggled to make the time, and all of a sudden you make it, or, whatever. So I remember more of those moments than I do as a particular win or not. I remember, of course, I remember winning. Winning's fun. I wouldn't keep doing this if I didn't like to win. But it's not always about just that placing. It's about the ride. It's about the moment leading up to it, and the moments after it.
Yeah, it's like an addiction. It keeps you going. Keeps you coming back 20 years later.
Yeah.
So back to the beginning. So Midland, Texas. That on a
Midland,
cattle ranch.
Texas. Yeah.
I have to tell you this funny story. I was teaching a clinic actually in Midland. I'd never heard of a pump jack, and I was flying over, and I'm like, what is that? And it's just so much oil. And I learned all about minerals, and this lovely lady that was driving me around, it was like, we were listening to like Christian rock, and we're driving. She goes, well, that's Will Faudree's daddy's house. Like it's like a national treasure. So it was kind of neat, actually. I was like, oh, this is where baby Will grew up.
Yeah.
But how did you get from Midland, Texas to, I think you went to Phillip from there, right?
Yeah, I went to, when I first left Texas, I was at Karen and David's for a bit. They were my they were the Area 5 young rider coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Karen and David's, I went to Phillip's and was there for 3 years, and then took a job with Jim Cogdell.
I know that guy.
Yeah, you know that guy. And then that didn't pan out for no other reason that Jim wanted to kind of steer in the direction of running an event, and I wanted to go in the direction of riding in the events. And so I had, that was in 2003, and I had just made the senior team at the Pan Ams, and that team was myself, Stephen Bradley, Bobby Costello, and Jan Benny, which I affectionately nicknamed that team the Three Gays and the Little Lady. And
definitely something to be found on TBS.
yeah. It's like, well, not three men and a little lady, three gays and a little lady. But Bobby Costello and I had become friends, and I was in Norwood, North Carolina, and he was in Southern Pines, and I would come back and forth, and I was a young professional starting out on my own, and he had started helping me a bit in the show. I really struggled in the show jumping, and he had started helping me with my show jumping, and then I really had he had been to the Olympics in Sydney, and then obviously on that Pan Am team, and I was just so I worked for Karen and David as a working student. I worked for Philip as a working student, and I so admired his approach to his career, and it suited my personality better. I wasn't ever going to be, I never really have been the rider that's going to have 10 or 12 horses at an event. I can't do that. And so I got a lot of, I really went to Bobby not just as a coach, but I sought advice in as the start of my professional career. And
as a mentor.
We had always done, when I was with Philip, we were in Pennsylvania, and then we'd go down to Aiken for the winters, and I hated that. I hated that having two places. I'm such a homebody, and so I loved that I could be in this area year round. And so I ended up moving to Southern Pines end of 2003, and then rented places. Actually rented a place in 2000. That place that I had started in 2003, and I was there, and I was actually at the final outing in England at Gatcombe before the Athens Olympics, and that barn had been hit by lightning and burnt down.
Oh my God.
And so luckily the horses that I had left, Antigua was with me obviously in England, but the horses that I had left, I had 3 other horses there. Bobby had them for the summer. They were at his farm. So I didn't have any animals, but
everything.
Everything. I was 22 years old, so I didn't have a ton of stuff, but
but everything you have with you when you're 22 years old.
And I had left, so my Pan Am gold medal got burnt up.
Oh my God.
So that place burnt down when I was in Athens, and when I came back from Athens, my horses were still at Bobby's, but it was like, well, what am I gonna do? And I ended up by chance meeting Tex and Donna Griffin in the grocery store checkout line. I had a Athens shirt on because it was basically the only clothes I had was what I took to England and what I got in Athens. And this really nice couple said to me, they were like, "Oh, are you, Will Faudree?" And I said, "Yeah." They were like, "Oh my God, we're so, sorry. We heard about your house. That's so bad. Have you found a place?" I'm like, "No, not yet." And they're like, "Oh, you should come look at ours." So I actually followed them right then from the grocery store and went to their place in Southern Pines, and they were amazing. And they had a 6-stall barn, a little cabin that I rented from 04 to the beginning of 08. And then the farm that I have now came on the market, and it's about 20 miles from Southern Pines. And I'm just in the next county over. But it's great because I have 60 acres here, and then Jennifer Mosing She bought the 150 acres across the street, and then we're surrounded by 80,000 acres of North Carolina land and wildlife. So, and I've been here now since '08, and it's been really fun to develop and I took a little bit of I got to design the barn. So I took different things that I loved from the barns that I had been to and I had worked in, and got to put them in my own place. And then once I got that settled, then I started adding on to my house, and so it becomes a little bit of an addiction.
Yeah, but it also is something. I mean, I remember when we bought this farm, which was like 6 years ago, not 12 or whatnot, and being so intimidated by even like trying to decide where to put a paddock, like it takes a certain level of confidence. And I've been to your farm several times, and it's stunning. I mean, like the vision, it's not that you just designed a barn, like that's something you could do for a living. I mean, every corner is planned out. It's beautiful and functional.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Like incredibly functional.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit my pride and joy. And I've loved developing it, and I've tried to do it through the eyes of the horse, and that's I guess I'd have to say probably my biggest passion, in addition to my competitive career.
It's really phenomenal. I mean, I remember going through, I have tons of pictures of your farm in my phone, because I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And this is a great idea. Everything from, how you have the tractor and the muck heap actually in the barn in a certain way that you can drive it in, that you don't have to go out in the rain and dump the manure. I'm like, that's genius. But I think, you get a lot of that. You're right, from being in different barns and working and living in different spaces. I remember going out to, it was out with Mark Weisbecker and Bobby out at Mark's place, and talking to them about their farm. And Mark saying that he just used to go out to the property and just sit there for months before building anything, just to see where the sun set, where the sun came up, where the wind came in, everything, just so that he could figure out, and he said he changed his mind 15 times about stuff, and but just would sit there. It's really kind of a spectacular undertaking, but something to be so proud of.
No, it's fun. And I've got a lot of people staying here right now with horses, and everybody's like, God, the horses are like so chill here, they just like stay out in the fields. I'm like, it's been that way since I first set foot on it. Like, horses really love it here, or at least they love it enough to stay quiet in their fields.
But there is, I mean, like, we talk about the horses, and like the horses are just masters of energy, right? Like that's how they communicate. That's how they, if we can manage and direct our energy as well as they can and read it, we'd be a lot better off. But there's something about the energy of a place and the people that are in the space that really can honestly make or break a horse. I mean, like literally. The amount of accidents that happen in paddocks and running and that type of stuff, that really I think has something to do with the energy of a place. And if you can start to navigate that and in an abstract way, engage it and celebrate it, and know that it's real, it kind of it creates a really special place. I can't imagine actually wanting to leave to come to Florida or go to Aiken or up north.
No, I'm very happy on my island.
Well, but it's kind of it is cool, right? Because you are kind of this midway stop. I think there's very few of us that haven't ended up, crashing in one of your rooms or putting the horses in a field. And I remember last time I was there, you weren't even there. I think I FaceTimed you from your kitchen, like swinging on a swing.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. So we go from Texas to Middleburg to Unionville to Southern Pines. With a brief stop in Norwood in there. And So then let's go to your competitive kind of career. So you have all this amazing success as a young person. And then when did Jennifer Mosing come into the picture?
So Jennifer, I met Jennifer. I was teaching a clinic in Shreveport, Louisiana, in the first weekend of December in 2008. And I had met her once before, and then I was teaching her daughters in this clinic, and that was 2008. Antigua had retired. I had done Kentucky on him in 2008, and then he was shortlisted for those Olympic Games, but he did not get on the plane to go to England. And then I had just bought the farm, or I had just moved out to the farm. We had gotten the paddock situated and everything that I could move horses out here. And I had a really cool horse called Paulo that I had just done the now 3-star at Fair Hill. And I needed to sell him. I owned him, and I didn't really want to sell him, but it had been that whole summer I had been trying to get to the Olympics, so I wasn't doing a whole lot, and other than just training with Mark Phillips and doing all those training sessions. And then my sister unfortunately was diagnosed with cancer in May of 2008, and then she died in November of 2008. And
oh my God.
Yeah, it was actually, Kristen died on a Saturday. The following Saturday was her funeral, and the following Saturday I met Jennifer.
So, oh my God. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jennifer she's been, the term fairy godmother gets dropped a lot, when you hear about owners and people like that. But the biggest term I can say about, or biggest word I could call Jennifer is a friend. And she's been obviously a huge part of my career, and family at this point. It's so weird. I went down. I had to go down to. She has a house here, and I went down to her house she was here for Carolina, and I had to go down there and get a few things. And I walked into the house, and I was getting stuff out of the refrigerator, and I hear this voice, Will. I turn around, and it's her youngest son, who's now 20. And I remember going to his 7th birthday, and I'm like, where does time go? But he actually goes to college in High Point, North Carolina, so he comes down on the weekends.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
You're like, I didn't even knock. Yeah. That's funny. I met him one time. I think I went down to teach a clinic down at their place. And yeah, he would have been probably like 7 or 8. Maybe he was 10, because he was on one of those. What are those? It's like an indoor skateboard, but it's like with your weight. You kind of zoom around the place. Like, he was just in and out and around. And yeah, that's so wild, actually, that he's 20.
Yeah. He's 20 in college. And crazy.
So one of the things that I think is so cool about you and Jennifer is, knowing both of you guys independently and then together. I think there is this, I don't know what the word is. There's this thing out there that you're supposed to be a certain way or be a certain thing to entice owners and people into your circle. And, you've got to behave a certain way that sometimes isn't really true to who you are. And I think one of the coolest things about you guys is that you're always true to who you are, whether you're like, yelling about something or excited about something, or, like whatever it is in the moment. And, and Jennifer is very, she's very reserved, but she has her opinions and her thoughts, and is a very smart lady. And you guys just always have seemed so comfortable in your own skin, comfortable together. There doesn't seem to be this, owner rider role. It's never felt that way. It's always felt very comfortable.
No, I mean, I definitely beat to my own drum and kind of make my, like, what's the expression somebody said to me one time. They were like, "Oh, if you were mine, I wouldn't let you go." I was like, "I wouldn't ask your permission." I'm gonna do what I want.
Exactly.
But no, like, I remember when when I first started riding for Jennifer, I was 27, and I was out of the closet to all you guys. People that knew me, but I wasn't out to my family. I was not something that I broadcasted. Not that I broadcast it now, but I also, I don't deny, And I remember, in 2010, it was Paulo's first 5-star at Kentucky, and the guy that I was with at the time wanted to come, and I was like a little bit, I was pretty sure Jennifer knew, but I didn't know. And Jennifer's husband was going to be there, and was this going to be weird or?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't need this added stress, but I also was like, well, whatever. And he came, and I remember Sunday night we were sitting there, and I think I finished 10th or 12th on him. It was really exciting. He had had a good go, and it was exciting for me because I had a horse at that level after Antigua.
Yeah.
And that was it was a relief, I guess, would be the biggest word. But I remember we were sitting there, and something was said about my boyfriend, and I kind of like shut up or something, like, oh my God, don't say that. And I'll never forget, Jennifer looked at me and she goes, "Well, do you think my husband let me come to these events by myself if you were straight?" And I was just like, okay, cool.
You're like my second big relief of the weekend.
Yeah. So and that's just been that right there is
absolutely
we are so. I mean, I talk to Jennifer daily, and we just we have fun, and I think we're both similar in that. Like, we have our jobs. We know what our jobs are, or I know what my job is, and we have a good time, and that's been I think why it works. There's no hidden agenda. Doors or oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. It's like, and now, I mean, now in my 40s, I'm even more like beaten to my own drum.
I think that's one of the the good things that comes with age, is the confidence to just be like, what's the point in doing something else? Because I want to create a community around myself that appreciates me for me. If I have to pretend to be somebody else, then what's the point?
Yeah.
I think that's why you and I have always gotten on really well, because if either of us is being ridiculous, we both call each other on it, and then 2 seconds later, it's like, whatever.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Cool.
And moving on. That's awesome. So, from the looking again, I'm not saying this like in a way of like, oh my God, we're 40 and we're like ancient, but I feel like 40 actually is the new 25 in the sport. I mean, if you look at the people that are really doing quite well, is really a crew of people that have that experience and the confidence, and I think the confidence in the community. A lot of people that I've spoken to are just feeling really good in their own programs and really secure in their group and their people. And it's really showing at the competitions and with the horses, and that is kind of an older crew, and I don't know, I mean, what do you think? Is that because the sport, I mean, the sport is definitely changed, it's definitely really it's really tough. I mean, it's always been a hard game, but the level of expertise in all three phases is incredibly complicated now, and it takes a focus and an attention to detail that I think, you know, even when we were teenagers, it wasn't this hard. Like, you know, it takes a certain mindset to be able to tackle each thing and not be so emotional about it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I spend a lot. I spend quite a bit of money with Abigail Lufkin, my sports psychologist.
Right now,
but,
do you still?
Oh yeah, I
No
talk to
kidding.
her. Yeah, I talk to her once a month, and like, I spoke to her last Thursday, and then I'm talking to her again the Friday before Kentucky. So
No kidding.
yeah,
So Ab, for those of you that don't, Ab was a phenomenal rider and was at the top of the game for a long time, had multiple horses, you know, in team contingencies, at teams, and then she is now a sports psychologist, right? Is she in California? Where?
She's in California, yep, and she's amazing, and it's funny because like I knew Ab a little bit, you know, competing towards the end of her career, and in talking to her, you know, I've worked with several other sports psychologists. It's great because I know that, like, I've talked to some, and it's like, you don't get it when I say,
yeah,
you know, he's gonna get hot or he's gonna get whatever, and so yeah. But she's a phenomenal sports psychologist, and she has helped me a lot. And
no kidding. Can you share some of the secret tidbits of some things that have really helped? Like, is there prep that you do, or is there
it's
homework?
not so well, there is like not so much homework. And I started working with Ab in January of 2019, and I had you know, there was some things that had gone on, you know, horses, you know, not going great, and in some areas, and so I was really happy with my coaching, really happy with my veterinary care, my farrier, my staff, and why wasn't I producing the results? And that came back onto me, and so I wanted to really address the psychological side of it. And for a long time, I kind of would joke around and psychologize myself. You know, my mom's a psychologist, so I grew up with that. And the first thing I said to Ab in one of our first meetings was, I know exactly what I can say that will tell you exactly what you want to hear, so that we can finish this sooner and I can be out of here. But I'm telling you that because I'm doing that in my horses, in my competitive life. I know what I have to do, or I know what the picture needs to look like, but the picture I'm presenting isn't good enough. And so it was a real, I was my own hurdle, was getting over my own, being real honest with myself about where I was competitively, you know, just being honest with myself about what I needed to do in the competition in the moment. I said if it was a written test, I'd get 100, but I'm not producing that. And I mean, so that's been, you know, I've been working with her, and at the beginning, the first year, I was working with her every other week. And
what was her response to that first? Like,
she laughed, and she was like, you know, that takes a lot to say that, because not a whole lot of people will. And, I'm glad that you're here and you want to work through the side of it. Let's get going.
Yeah.
And, a lot of stuff that I dealt with, and one of the biggest issues that I faced competition wise was my own emotion. And my own emotion would get the best of me. And it was the emotion of what I wanted other people to think of me.
Right.
What I wanted the coaches, what I wanted the selectors, what I wanted this. And I used to have a lot of really, I would get into these head spaces within a competition, about, I was at an event, years ago, and where a rider was killed, and it really, I couldn't get, not, I understood, and I worked with Ab about this, and I said, I understand the risk. I'm not afraid of that, and I don't have that fear, but I have this guilt, and I couldn't ever really pinpoint what that guilt was. And it was a guilt that really kept me from allowing myself to be competitive. And I mean, it wasn't until after I had gone to an event overseas, and I had all of this, not death fears of me getting hurt or the horse getting hurt, but it was really weighing heavily on me. And I talked to Ab a lot about that after the event, and I did it. I had a good competition. Everything went really well. And it was this guilt of, I didn't deserve to be competitive. And I couldn't pinpoint what that was.
Right.
And I'm not going to get emotional on this, but I did when I was talking to Ab.
Yeah.
But because she was like, sit there with that. And what is it that you are allowing, or what is it that you are feeling? Like, where do you feel it? Like, is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Where are you feeling this guilt? And what is this guilt coming from? And, I had told her, some other stuff. And like, when I was at that event where the rider died, and I told her, I said, it was so weird. Like, I didn't know the person at all. But I went like on the Facebook, the Facebook page of this person. And she was like, well, what were you looking for? And I was like, that their passion. Like, I hate when people say, oh, they died doing what they love. If I died doing this, do not say I died doing what I love. If I died doing what I love, I'm drinking wine and sitting around with my friends. I die doing my job. That's another thing. I love my job, but,
yeah.
And anyway, so we talked through a lot of that, and this is over a couple of sessions. So it didn't just happen like, oh, right away. I mean, this was a year in the process.
Yeah.
And finally she said, and she said, why does that phrase bother you so much when people say why would you not want that said? And I said, because people shouldn't die doing what they love. And she goes, sit with that for a minute. She goes, you sound angry when you say that. I go, I am. She goes, why? And I said, because my sister died while I was doing what I love, trying to take a 20-year-old horse to the Olympics.
Right.
And she was like, bingo.
Right.
And it was all of this. I had never really dealt with the guilt I had over my sister's death.
Right.
And that was a huge layer that I couldn't, that was that guilt that held me back. And it took a long time for me to be able to say that out loud.
But did you even know? I mean, that sounds like something that was like a complete, like, whoa.
No. And I burst into tears when I was talking to her. And I was like, I said, I'm sorry. I said, I don't know where this is coming from. And she was like, the grieving is, the guilt and the grieving is a totally different thing. And I'd carried that with me for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the guilt of, I had this fairy tale, like I said, my sister died, then the funeral, and then I met Jennifer, and it was like, this was all a product of, my sister looking out for me, and I had all this, I put this pressure on myself, and it was pressure that I didn't deserve. Well, not pressure that I didn't deserve, but this existence, this reality that I didn't deserve, because I was doing what I loved while my sister was fighting for life, and I had so much guilt about that.
Right.
And that took a long time to work through.
Yeah.
And now it's a really cool connection that I have with with the work that I did to get to really work through that. And and everybody's a bit different. Everybody is very different, but that was something that really it took a lot of work to get through, and I'm not through it. I have to work with it every day, and it's a wild. The human brain is a the human brain and the human heart need to have that's a very
scene out of Willy Wonka
thing. Yeah. But yeah, and so from that, when I have any of the when I get that guilt, now I've got different exercises that I do in my head, and the biggest one is the smile. And because it was like, well, what would my sister want? And that was like, what happened? Well, she was the one telling me to go, and da 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 da. So, but that took a long time to work through. And so now when I have that, it's just that moment of that connection, and that really that relief. And it's a moment for me in my competitive life. It's a moment for slow motion, and I have to think in slow motion so that I can do my job. And if I think in slow motion, I can do my job. And if I think in slow motion, then I'm going to have the emotion to be able to move forward to the next thing guilt-free.
Right.
And if you don't have the armor of guilt, you can do your job.
Yeah.
Still can't get my fucking elbows in the dressage, but
that's funny. We all have to have something. Well,
I know. I had a lesson with Tammy Smith, and she put these bands around me. I was like,
oh my God, I hope you got video.
Oh, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna get video. She goes, look, you're sitting so good. I'm like, I know, and the horse is going really well.
You're like, and I can't move and I can't breathe, but hey. That is so crazy. So, I mean, that is, I mean, I got chills when you were telling a lot of that. Well, but it's so interesting how, the word you said a couple of times in there was like a connection, and how in the beginning when you went to Ab and you said, like, I have this picture of what I want, but I was thinking like, but it's not connecting, like it's not connecting anywhere. And that's so crazy powerful that you were able to kind of have that discussion and that revelation. And now there's a connection there. And, the horses are the mirrors of all of that. But that is, and it's so crazy, isn't it? How it's like, I mean, like you said, the human mind's a crazy place, the human mind and the human heart, because you would think, who knows yourself better than yourself? And it's like, sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what's going on right now. I'm having these reactions and this emotion, and I'm not connecting it to anything. And it's just so interesting and powerful and empowering, I guess, to like get some help, like that actually somebody else can come in and give you the tools to get to know yourself and connect to yourself better. And then you can connect to your job, to your horses, to your family, to your life, and it's not perfect, but at least then, like you said, you can kind of recognize these moments of, I'm going down this road. Now I have some, some tools to help keep this connection working,
Yeah.
Just
no,
wild.
It's wild. And then, I read a book kind of after I had that epiphany. And I only read the book because I think she's hilarious. I read Chelsea Handler's book, Life Will Be the Death of Me and You Too.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, if you haven't read it, read it. It's it is, but she lost her brother when she was 9 years old. And she never dealt with that. And this whole book is about her, she finally goes to therapy, and she goes to therapy, basically because she can't, make a relationship work, and she wants to know what the problem is. And so this guy's like telling her that she needs to, dig deeper and sit with this. He hands her an orange, and she's like squeezing the orange, and then all of a sudden, like it hit her. And as I was reading it and listening to it, I was like, that was the exact same moment. I didn't expect what came out of my mouth to be the issue really of my sister.
Right.
And it was the same. My little boy's here. It was the same that Chelsea had in that book. So I would recommend anybody to go and read that, because when I do write a book, but it's a journey, and it takes work, and well, it did for me, and it still does every day. But
that's so. That's just the huge thing. That you said, like, I'm looking around and I'm happy with my horses, and I'm happy with my vets, and I'm happy with my coaches. And so, well, who does that leave,
Yeah.
And to go down that road is a really big thing. I think there's a lot of different things that, are on that list of things that make a successful event rider, person, or human, or whatever. And I think that level of self-awareness is a big one, like it is being able to be kind of brave enough to look in the mirror
and say, I am the problem.
Yeah, it's me. Yeah. You're like, it's really not you, it's me. It's wild though. And it's so easy to go take more dressage lessons, right? Like, like the problem is I need to train more, or I need to do this more. Who would have thunk you would have gone down that road, and it would have been completely nothing to do with, horses, really.
Yeah. No, I had no, and there's other layers and stuff that we've gone into for the next podcast, but yeah, no, like I said, that's why it's ever changing, and it's something that you gotta wake up every day and say, when I have that, I gotta feel where it is and acknowledge it. What is it? Acknowledgement, identification, awareness, something I can't remember. I've got it written down somewhere, but
it's on the blackboard.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us about the skull and the crossbones?
Can you see my flag there?
No, I didn't. Let's see.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. I know. I was surfing around on your website, and I was like, oh yeah. And I remembered your wallpaper in your bar, and it's on your show coat. Tell us about your logo.
Yeah, so 2015, I broke my neck, and
Can I stop you for 1 second? Because I'm just, I just want to go back to the beginning of this conversation when we talked about, going to Aachen and going here and going there. And in the last 10 minutes, we've talked about breaking your neck, losing your sister, going to therapy. This is what I'm talking about, is that, and you're doing it laughing and telling jokes, but this is kind of the real journey, this is the real stuff. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought I'd note those few things when you're like, so I broke my neck.
No. So, in 2015, I broke my neck. I broke my neck in September of 2015. And that's a laying on your back in a neck brace for a long time does a lot of crazy things to your head. I probably should have started therapy then. But I obviously came back, and it wasn't until the next year, and I was getting ready to go to a competition. I was taking a horse over to England in 2016. I was taking Fun to Blenheim. Didn't go well. I retired at the fourth fence, but
no.
Yeah, that wasn't fun. But
I remember. I was there, I think.
Yeah, it was very bizarre. But anyway, I was getting ready for that event, and I was packing my bag up, and I got my pink coat when I was 21 years old. And when I was a kid, all I wanted, I can't tell you how many Halloweens I dressed up in a red jacket and went door to door asking for candy. All I wanted as a kid was to represent the US and be able to have that jacket. And I got it when I was really young, and I had a really great horse. And I go back and watch videos. That horse deserves an Oscar. But because that was quite a role he played. But after the World Games, I rode on the world team in 2006. And after that, I've said it in 1,000 interviews. People are probably sick of hearing me say it, but I was at Jane Murray's 50th birthday party, and Karen Stives came up to me and she said, "Congrats on the Worlds. Don't expect your next horse to fill his shoes." And I've never forgotten that. And I was really good about trying to really embrace that saying, and meeting every horse as an individual, and I felt like I'd really done that. And then I broke my neck, and you lay on your back and a whole bunch of stuff goes through your head. And I was getting ready for an event the next year, and I was packing my bag, and I was putting my pink coat in there, and I had the Jolly Roger emblem. I have it in my room, and it kind of fell down out of this cabinet. It's a pirate book. I'm a little bit obsessed with pirates. And the thing that fell down was from the Goonies. And that was one of my favorite movies as a kid. And Goonies never die. And I was putting my pink coat in my bag, and I was like, my whole life I've done this for that coat. And is that why I'm doing it? And knowing what I know now from the last 4 years of therapy with Ab, but there that was a guilt level there, and it wasn't done for myself. And that was really the start of, it was the start of the rest of my career. And of doing this for me, doing this for my horses, and doing this for my crew, my team. And so I just embraced the emblem, and I had a tie clip that was given to me that is a skull and crossbones that I used to wear quite a bit. And then I just started to embrace, and I had never really embraced it because people would my dad gave me something one time when I was younger, and I wasn't going to wear, it was like a saddle pad of the skull and crossbones or something. I wasn't going to wear it. And he was like, "Oh, I thought you liked it." I said, "I do, but that's like, don't drink this. It's like poison. I don't want to be poison." And then, I don't know, it was something in that moment, in that realization of, you've had a good run at this. You survived breaking your neck. It's a battle flag. And if you go back and really study the pirates' use of the Jolly Roger, and it was a flag that they would only raise going into battle. And you only took it down by raising a white flag. And sometimes you might have to be like, another day. But for the most part, you're gonna ride them to the ground.
Keep
ride them to the
flying
finish.
that flag.
keep going, and so it's just a reminder. It's not a reminder, but it's an image to me that I can do hard things. I can overcome hard things. I can keep going, and I joked around, which is not really a joke, because I wasn't English major in college, but I didn't finish. But I do write a lot, and if I ever do put out, I was talking to my brother who just had a kid. Well, he didn't; his wife did. But
I mean, my husband says that being the husband's way more difficult.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
And then I hit him.
Yeah. But I forgot what I was saying.
That something about you writing a book, and you were talking about.
Oh yeah. So I had written some stuff, and I was in Austin visiting my new little nephew, and anyway, my brother found something that I had written. It was in a journal that I had, and he was like, "You should put all this stuff in a book." I said, "I probably will someday."
Yeah.
And then my sister-in-law was like, "What will you call it?" And we were joking around, and I was like, "Almost. Keep going."
I love it.
And
I love it.
So.
I can see like a little David Sedaris. Like, I mean, I think it would be a bestseller.
Yeah.
I think Tick would happily ghostwrite and help you out there too. We could.
Cool. Yeah.
I would definitely buy it, especially after this interview. I want more. Keep going.
No, it's fun. I mean, and I don't know. For me, writing that's a huge escape for me too. Like if I get really nervous or if I'm wound up about stuff, and just
getting it down on
put it out on paper, and then it's there. And that's also something that I deal with, like with nerves. Again, all the work that I've done with that, but like acknowledging what nerves are where and why, and I've got to take some nerves with them. I mean, when we were kids, and like I remember Karen O'Connor telling us, "You got to have butterflies; they've just got to fly in formation." Like I can, I just got to get all mine going the same direction. They don't even need it.
Mine are kamikazes.
Yeah,
they need helmets.
Yeah. Yeah, and parachutes.
They might look like pheasants.
Yeah. Mine are skydivers. They jumped out of the plane.
Yeah, one wing.
No, but like I'll take nerves with me, but any of the other ones, or if I write nerves down, or any stuff that I don't want to take with me when I get on, whatever baggage that is, I'll write it down and I put it in my trunk, or I leave it in my car, and that's there. It's not coming with me. It's still there. I can pick it up and deal with it when I get back. But that's a huge release for me too, about getting it out. So.
Totally. I think that's a really powerful thing. I've worked with a sports psychologist for quite a long time, and Dr. Jenny Susser. She was on here, and I write a lot too. Like I scribble and journal, and I was feeling a lot of pressure to like keep stuff and write in formation and blah, blah. And she's like, what are you doing? She's like, and she basically said, keep what you want, but the majority of it is just to get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper, and then the work's done. Then you don't have to, 90% of the stuff I write, I just have notebooks and they're illegible, but it's, but it's out of my head at least. So I think that is, it's a very powerful tool if it's like you said, like if it's something that really resonates with you and, helps with that. But I think this, what you're alluding to at this stage of the game is there's so much work to do. It just turns into a different type of work, turns into a different type of something. And I think that's one of the, I know certainly as I've gotten older, one of the things I've started to embrace and enjoy more is the learning, is like the evolution of it, and recognizing that it's never going to be a finished product, that it's the work is actually like it's going to be hard, but what's going to happen today, like talking about this huge change for you and this big revolution, it's like that's so huge and empowering. It's like once you get that out of the way, what else can you do? What else is there that you can solve and figure out and grow? And I'm sure the horses appreciate it. I'm sure they just, they're just the most gracious animals ever. Like you said, when you look back at videos of Brad, and we all had that first horse. That
oh my God.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. It's shocking.
Yeah. But I think, I think every horse comes into your life for a reason. And I think a lot of us were fortunate to have one that gave us a taste. Then shit got real.
Yeah.
But they're so gracious, and maybe that horse comes around again later and you get to actually, pay it back a little bit, like you think, okay, I'm thank you. I'm better now. But it's a pretty powerful thing. Well, that's so cool. So we're gonna get to these questions, and we really like wrapping the show with these. You've been so open, and I just love that about you, how you're so willing to kind of share your journey and what you go through. And I know you just told me a whole lot I didn't know. And I'm like, I know this guy, and and it's really inspiring. And I think that's going to help a lot of our listeners recognize how much work goes in behind the scenes. And it's so and it's like you said it earlier, and you really hit the nail on the head, is that everybody is a little different. And then you stopped and said, actually no, everybody is really different, but there are kind of these common factors of that everybody's going through something. And if you can kind of flip that and empower yourself to kind of sit with it, like you said, kind of, I'm going to picture like an orange, or sitting with an orange from now on. But if you can sit with that and kind of, not get the right type of emotion. I think you said that too. Like it's, sometimes people say, oh, there's no emotion, you shouldn't have emotion in riding. But I think it's about having the right type of emotion.
Yeah.
Like it's a passion, but like we certainly don't do it for the money. So there's a passion driven there, but it's just kind of having the appropriate amount. But I want to circle back to some of these questions that I sent you, and go from there. So you can have a pass if you want to pass on any of them.
Okay.
But
Hold on, hush.
Bad dog. We've had a lot of bad dogs on the show, actually. Kim Severson's are real bad. But all right. So we're going to start with number 1. What is the biggest lesson a horse has taught you about yourself?
That I can keep going. And it's a little bit of a mixture of of probably every horse I've ever sat on. That they're all different, and if you're gonna do this, and you can't expect the next one to fill the previous one's shoes. There's no, everybody's very different. So is every horse. And so you just have to keep going. And when things get hard, think in slow motion and figure out how to do it.
That's good. I like that. Think in slow motion. I'm writing that down.
I mean, Laura Kraut told me years ago, before she was she helped us with show jumping before the Aachen World Games. And I remember sitting talking with her it was at Gatcombe, because she had warmed all of us up and we were sitting back there, and I'll never forget it. She said, well, the person who wins the jump off is the person who thinks in slow motion. And I'm people have asked me, like, oh, like at Carolina last weekend, how'd you make Fun go so fast? Like, you just keep kicking him, but you got to think in slow motion so you can make the most efficient turns.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I love that expression. That's something that I go to a lot.
Yeah. Well, I wrote that down from earlier. You said think in slow motion. So, and then you paused and said, so you can get the right emotion, which was pretty cool. Do you have a favorite training or competition mantra that you reference regularly? Might have
think in slow motion and just do your job.
Just do your job. Okay, well, we'll go to number 3. Is there a piece of advice that someone gave you along the way that you still reference today? Yes. I mean, the Karen Stives quote is one that I think about all the time. I'm gonna go back to Bobby Costello, who's really been such a everything I've done in my professional career, he has been a part of. And I go to him for a lot of advice, and I go to him and ask him questions, and he never will just give me the answer, but he demands horsemanship, and he makes me think so that I don't ever forget it. So I come up with that on my own, and it's not one thing that he says or doesn't say. It's probably the things he doesn't say that are so impactful. In a moment of, whether it's in a moment of training, or a moment of recap. There's just sometimes like, you got to do that better. And and I'm like, yeah, but like, we went over my show jump rounds last weekend, and I had a rail on Teddy, which, I mean, a monkey could jump that thing clean. I had the triple bar down. And I was like, coming out of the turn, and like, you can see it 6 strides out, and he just looks at me, and he was like, I'm like, enough said. And so that's something that sometimes it's, don't go looking for reasoning, just be real honest with why things happen. And that's something that I've really admired that Bobby's so good at. He's really, it's funny. It reminds me of when we were at Burley. I can't remember if we were 211 or 212. You had Missy. When was that?
2012.
And I remember talking to Bobby, and he said to me, because we passed each other. I was going out, you were coming in, and you had a fall.
Yeah.
And I saw Bobby later and I said something like, oh, poor Will or whatnot. And he looked at me and he said, he was kind of like a little like this. And he said, so-and-so, I can't remember who it was, said exactly the wrong thing to Will before he went. And he's like, if you know Will at all, you can't say this. And I remember that conversation so profoundly because A, Bobby is very politically correct. He doesn't get wound up very much. And B, it struck me because I thought how well he knew you and how well, like how you just said, sometimes it's not what you say, like we've all had situations like that happen where, you, in a perfect world, somebody should be able to say anything to you and it doesn't get through. But I mean, let's be real, in the heat of the moment, right before you're supposed to do something, some things just sit with you and that can really like make you go and do the best thing you've ever done, or it can really kind of mess with you a little bit.
Yeah.
But I remember that from however many years ago, him saying that about you. And I thought how powerful it was to have somebody in your corner that actually kind of could filter that or knew what to say and what not to say that would really, impact you.
And he's that way with all of his students and all of the people that he can put into the ring. And so it's not, one thing that he has said to me throughout my career, but I mean, I can't tell you the number of 5-star start boxes he's walked with me down to the start, and I'm like, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I think she's pulled a shoe, and I don't want to go. And he knows, I'm not ever one that needs to get wound up like, go out and attack. Like, just think in slow motion and do your freaking job. But no, so the biggest thing I would say, like if I had to pinpoint, is to know your audience.
Yeah.
Know your students, know your horse, and that's something that has been so instilled in me through his guidance over the last 20 years.
Yeah, you got to be careful with or mindful. Careful is not the right word. Mindful of what you say. Yeah. Okay. What do you do when you are seeking inspiration?
Seeking inspiration. I tend to try to not seek inspiration because when I do, I start adding on.
Build another wing onto your house.
Hang another swing up.
Yeah. It's like, is there a swing in this shower?
Yeah, there is. It's nothing weird. But I mean, it doesn't take much to get me inspired. This is going to sound so gay, no pun intended. But one of my favorite things to do, and it comes on at like 8:06 in the morning, is I watch the Today Show. And Hoda Kotb always does these morning boosts. And most of the time I cry at the end of them because it's usually like an army guy that sees his kids again. But it's something of either a kid or like one the other day was this woman was finding out she was going to be a grandmother and how they told them, and just that sheer joy and excitement and love and passion and whatever it is. I love seeing that in other people. And so I always, it's so funny because like I have a lady that I work out with Monday through Friday, and this time of year she comes at 6:15 in the morning just because I've got to start riding, but which is fine because then I'm done, so I'm in there to watch my morning boost. But like in the winter and stuff, when she was coming at 8 o'clock, and we'd get there and I'd make her drink coffee until I could see the morning boost. So I've never actually really thought of that, but I love stories like that.
Yeah.
And that inspires me to, to have that joy, that excitement, and that, and to feel that from the horses and from my students, from whatever it is. I mean, so Yeah, Hoda Copy's Morning Boost.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I haven't seen that. I like it. All right. Have you had an experience or adversity separate? We've talked about this a bit, but separate from horses in your life that has directly influenced you as a horseman?
A whole lot.
Mm.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think everything has, because I think in order to be a horseman, you have to put everything into it.
Yeah.
So, when I was a kid, we had the cattle ranch in Texas, and we also had the ranch in Cimarron, New Mexico, and the UU Bar Ranch, and my dad managed that. And anyway, we had a lot of cattle and horses on that, and I was probably 7 or 8 years old. It was one summer, and I had ridden up. We had moved a bunch of cattle up to the top of the mountain for the summer. And I was with a guy named Leroy Webb, and he was probably in his mid-70s. At that point, an old cowboy. I mean, just probably one of the greatest horsemen I've ever met. And I remember the next morning we had moved the cattle up there. It took us all day. It took us like 15 hours to get up there. And then we stayed in the cabin, and we were going to ride back the next day. And we woke up the next morning, and it was pouring rain, and it actually snowed on the top. And I remember he opened the door, and then he went out, fed the horses, and he came back in. And I had gone outside, and I was standing there, and because he came back in, and he goes, "Back inside. A rain day makes for good horsemen and good horses and good horsemen." And I remember looking at him, and I was like, "We're not going back today?" He was like, "No, these horses are going to have a day in the sun when this rain stops, and we'll go down tomorrow." And I've known, like, that's been something that now, after years of therapy, like that was then thinking in slow motion, like,
yeah.
And he said that a rain day makes for good horses and good horsemen, but remember, rain days are few and far between. And that's something that I've always kind of thought about, or still think about now. I mean, obviously, if you're getting ready for Kentucky and the horse has to do a gallop or a trot set, it's going to be pouring rain. You're going to go and do it. But there are some days where you just have to stop and smell the roses, so to speak. So.
Yeah. Well, that's that doesn't happen very much in our discipline.
We get so busy of, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this, and then you a little bit kind of lose the why. Yeah.
No, completely. You know, like it's you get to a point where it's the only person hustling you is you. Yeah, gotta pause that. Well, this has been awesome, Will. I really, really appreciate how honest and open you've been with all of this. I think it is, I'm going to go back and listen to this one for sure. And then go back and listen to Bobby's, because we had Bobby on here a couple of weeks ago, sitting in that same location. So I think you should send this on to Bobby, and we'll give a shout out to Ab as well. She might have a whole roster of people calling her. I might be on that list. That was fun to hear about her again. But I can't thank you enough. What is next? You're headed to Kentucky? Are you headed to the Fork?
The Fork, yeah. Fun and Mama's Magic Way. They'll just do a combined test this weekend, because they ran super at Carolina. And then I've got Ramona is doing the 4 short, and then Fun goes to Kentucky, and Mason goes to badminton.
Oh, so exciting.
So crazy. I did badminton in 2005. That was the last year it was long format. And weirdly enough, I was number 17. It was 17 years ago, and I finished 17th that year. So,
oh my God,
going back 17 years later.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Only time will tell.
Hopefully I do better than 17th, but
there's a good crew of Americanos going, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's a group.
It'll be fun. So
that'll be awesome. Well, best of luck. And thank you so much for joining us here. I will probably see you at Kentucky in real life.
Awesome.
And we'll
I
be
get to meet the
following.
baby.
Now, I honestly, it was like 2:00 in the morning. I was feeling bad for myself. I booked just myself going to Kentucky for 1.5 days, and I'm leaving Tick with the baby and the other baby. So that was a rude awakening for him.
Yeah.
But hopefully everyone will survive. So I will see you there, and I will be following the fork from here.
Awesome.
So thank you so much. And I know our listeners will be very excited, and everybody can check out your website. I looked at it. What is the website though?
I don't really update it.
I just Googled your name and it came out. It's actually a really beautiful website.
It's a beautiful website. I need to update it. I'm so computer illiterate that I don't know how to do any of that. And
I mean, honestly, like, I think the websites right now, I think Facebook and all the social media is so updated.
Yeah, the girls, we have a Facebook, a Will Faudree Event Team Facebook and Instagram account that Christina, who is my head groom, she does all that. So
yeah, so that's updated. The website's doing its job. It's very pretty. It has pretty pictures. It gives some background, and then everybody can follow you on the social media sites.
On social media, yeah. Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much, Will. We'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty, thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Before you go, I just want to let you know more about Ride IQ. At its core, Ride IQ gives everyone access to instruction from the best equestrian coaches in the world. It might sound impossible, but with Ride IQ, you get access to the private mobile app that has hundreds of on-demand, listen-while-you-ride audio lessons taught by top riders and coaches in eventing, hunter jumpers, and dressage. Here's how it works. You look through the app and choose a lesson based on your horse or a skill you're working on. There are lessons for green off-the-track thoroughbreds and nervous horses and horses that are behind the leg, as well as lessons that teach every stage of skills like shoulder in or trot lengthenings. Then you tack up and press play, and you have a top coach like Doug Payne or Leslie Law or Gina Smith in your ear guiding you every step of the way. If you enjoyed today's episode, it is always appreciated if you can take a moment to share the podcast with your friends and family and leave a review on your podcast app. The best way to support the podcast is to become a Ride IQ member at ride-iq.com. And when you do, we hope you're excited to see that In Stride is just one of multiple podcast shows on the app, including hack chats, conversations with coaches, and more. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful week, and please do press follow or subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen on. And as always, remember to pat your horse.